Okay, we're live. We're recording right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Okay.
my sincere apologies. I was kind of assuming that East Coast, I don't know, when you kind of came back and said, yeah, this time works great. And it was only, what, a 6-hour difference from when I really wanted to talk to you?
Just a few,
A
yeah.
little bit, yeah. So right now, Aurora Florence, what time is it where you are in the world?
It is 10:07 p.m.
10:07 p.m. My
Yeah.
bad. My bad.
No, I wish we went to bed before 11, but
Yeah.
that's like, if we get in bed by 11, we're like, yes, high five.
Okay.
We
So
did.
I'll jump into the first stereotype of acting types is I make the assumption. I've had a couple of actors as clients, and, I hear this version of that they're night owls. They don't even get started till late. Is that the case? Is that true?
If you're in a show, definitely, because most shows, like an early show would be a 7 p.m. That's
Mm,
like Tuesday night show or a 7. And if you're in a long show, I mean, you're lucky to get home before 11. That's like if you're really on top of your getting out the door after a show.
yeah.
And then there's the kind of unwinding, getting ready for bed, all of that. So certainly if you're in shows, if you're a theater actor, you definitely are up late. If you're doing film and TV, it's a little bit different. TV
Uh-huh.
tends to be a daytime, like 9 to 5,
Okay.
more full hours, or, give or take. Film, it just kind of depends on the day. If you're doing a night shoot or a morning shoot, you may be called at 3 a.m. and be done at 2 p.m.
Oh,
Or you
wow.
may
I
not be
didn't realize
called
that.
until, and yeah, it just depends on what you're filming that day. So
Okay.
you have to be flexible with your sleep schedule
Okay.
as an actor. For
So,
sure.
and all right. So obviously my guest, and they've read it in I've been so excited. It took 51 episodes to get you on here. I mean, that's probably not true. I wanted to have 50 under my belt, and then it was like, and now it's time for Aurora Florence. So
Right.
my audience is so familiar with you.
Congratulations.
Right? Okay. First,
For on 50, not for having me, on
yeah,
having
exactly.
50 episodes.
Oh, I thank you. Thank you very much. And actually, I think
Yeah,
you're 51, so that's even better. Yeah.
that's right.
So you end all of my podcasts with the song "It's Wonderful," and I remember reaching out to you early on and just asking if that was cool. And I really thought, what if you kind of say, "I'm sorry, who is this?" Or you reply back with a nice unsubscribe, right? Yeah. Um, but I appreciate that. And I get a lot of people that honestly, it's kind of cool to get feedback where people say that they are lovingly disappointed when that "Here Comes Your Music" because the podcast is over. But then I leave the whole thing on there, and I can't tell you how many people tell me that they leave that song on the whole time till that thing is done. So I appreciate that.
Oh, that's
Right?
sick to hear.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
would that be okay to kind of start there? I mean, and then we'll kind of get into your background and that sort of thing. But what is there? And here's where I don't know anything about music or acting. And so, is there a deep meaning behind "It's Wonderful"?
I mean, it's deep for me. I wrote it, in the throes and the angst of college.
Oh, okay.
I was in our basement apartment. We had a piano down there, in the basement of the apartment, and I was down there writing one evening, and I was, just going through a lot of the overwhelm and emotions that come with living with people besides your family for the first time, and as I'm working on just kind of trying to figure it out, one of my roommates, who she's my cousin actually, and a dear friend, but I heard her outside, like screaming and laughing, and it just like kind of like just made my blood pressure raise that much more. Like my anxiety was just like, I can't do this anymore. And the lyrics, "The Screaming Fireflies," that's her. That was like in that moment. It's like,
Okay.
because there's like fireflies are something that's like tender, and they evoke like childhood. You love them, right?
Hmm.
But a screaming firefly, it's like, it's the juxtaposition, right? And so, and just the sarcasm of "It's wonderful," right? Like, here you are in this phase of life that, everyone's telling me like, oh, college, I wish I could go back to college. It's so fun. It's so
Wow.
great. And I'm just thinking like, I've never eaten worse in my life. I've never been more tired in my life. I've never been more like emotionally exhausted in my life, and it just feels so like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be figuring everything out about who I am all in this moment. So
Okay,
it's
I
kind
love
of
that. Well, that's because my simpleton view is I hear the words and Wonderful. And I'm like, hey, this is a super happy song, right? So I love that there's like,
Right.
there is deep meaning to that. Yeah.
Right, but it also is, it's like, it's the pain of something when it is wonderful, but it's almost like you're getting too much of the wonderful too,
Okay.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like the analogy of like too much ice cream. Like, I love ice cream so much,
Yeah.
but if I eat too much ice cream, I'm gonna feel sick. So
You
it's
lost me,
that,
but
it's
I mean,
that.
I know that that's probably more of the normal. I don't know if I've gotten to that place yet, but no, yeah, that makes sense, right? That does. And out of curiosity, so the name of that album is it It's Wonderful, or the
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
How fun was that to put together? Was that like check off a bucket list, or was at that point in your life were you hoping to? I mean, this is why I'm so excited to have you on. I mean, we've kind of shared some notes of I want to hear your story of um, being an actor, professional actor. I mean, I think I had shared with you, I work with a lot of people that, when they're depressed or they struggle with, crippling anxiety, or and even sometimes when people get to the point where they're losing a lot of hope, and I'll just do hey, in a perfect world, what would you love to do? And a lot of people, man, I've always wanted to act. I've always wanted to sing. And so but then here comes all that negative, but I've been told it's hard, or the road is hard, or I would never make it, and then it just breaks my heart. And so that's why I couldn't wait to get you on, because that has been your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I've been so blessed to be able to do it. Um,
And I took on a tangent
yeah.
there, but so in that, when you were writing that, how long did it take to write all the songs, and what were your thoughts about that?
The songs from that EP, from that album, are from about probably a 3 year period. I didn't write them for that album. I
Oh,
actually it was a okay, these are of the songs that I've written, which ones do I want to record for an EP? And I had actually just gone through some pretty major career disappointments,
uh,
and I was in the process of doing some filming for a project in Utah,
uh-huh.
where that's where like my kind of songwriting music days started. So I have a lot of friends and music connections there, and we were going to be there for about 5-6 weeks, and I hadn't focused on my music in a while,
Mm,
and I was coping with and trying to deal with and sort through the emotions of this disappointment. And um, I just decided, what if I turn back to my music? Like, what if I record an EP and try and, go in that direction and get that going? And so in like a week, I put together a Kickstarter,
that's what I remember.
and
I saw that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and recorded it at June Audio, is a really fantastic studio in Provo. If anyone's out there looking for a recording studio, I recommend them. And yeah, just a conglomeration of friends and then friends of friends are playing on the tracks. And
Huh.
yeah, so then I focused on my music for a little while. I gigged a little bit while we were in New York City, while we were living there. And then I've mostly pursued acting
Okay.
since then. And since the last 3 years, we've been living in Knoxville, Tennessee for Jeff's to get his master's in acting.
Okay.
And so, and that's it, like acting is what I've had more time for. And
Okay.
so that's,
Well, let's okay. So, and I have to. So here's my ADD train of thought for the night. I see your piano there, and there's this part of me that desperately says,
yeah.
"Aurora, bust into chores," but then you have two small children that are asleep. So we will save that for another podcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's a fun one too. So all right. Let's start from the very beginning. Shall we do that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And did you
Yes.
think of a Sound of Music song at that point?
No, but
No. Okay. All right. That's my
but
music.
that's a really great reference.
Thank you. Thank you. So, all right. So, kind of, when did you first get the acting bug? Kind of talk about what that was like growing up.
Yeah, so my family, I come from very creative, outgoing parents, and well, my dad's very much an extrovert. My mom is more of an introvert, but very creative people. And we grew up going to shows, to plays, and musicals, and and enjoyed those. We'd clean the house singing Phantom of the Opera and things like that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so like you do.
Well, I would say to you that was your normal, right?
Right.
Okay.
Um, and then by the time I was in junior high school, a good friend and I, my age, some family friends, we wanted to do Shakespeare because we were really cool. And and there wasn't anything really in the area. And so our amazing mothers said, well, let's put on a show in the backyard. And it turned into this incredible nonprofit theater troupe for youth that, Shakespeare in the park for hundreds, thousands of people every season. And
Yeah.
they do education shows, improv. And so that was my introduction to theater. That's what, and to acting. And I grew up studying classical piano and violin.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, very strictly classical musician.
So did you always study? Okay. Did you always feel like then that was where you were headed for a career, or did you ever have the period where I want to be a fireman or an astronaut, or was it,
I was always pretty focused on music initially, and then it branched out into acting. I had an experience when, this is pretty typical, I think, of a lot of artists. I was 14 or 15, and we went to see the tour of Les Mis that was coming through. And, I was just very overwhelmed by the production, but really overwhelmed with how potent and how powerful the combination of theater and music is.
Okay.
And so from that point, I was really drawn to musical theater, and I decided I wanted to study that in college. So I started preparing for auditions, and then I was accepted into and did Brigham Young University's music dance theater program, which was great, a good program. That it was an interesting experience because for most of my time there, I felt like I was kind of a a square
peg in a round hole. Yeah. How so?
And,
how so?
Well, there's a certain like vocal type and sound that was, whatever was popular in the day of musical theater, that was pretty celebrated, and that was what like professors and people kind of knew what to do with. And I was always the kid that was like, well, we just don't really know what we do with you, And then I get into the real world and I don't really have any sense of, what my type is as an actor. A common thing people will ask is like, oh, well, I thought if you were a good actor, you're supposed to be able to play any part.
Right.
And it's true that a good actor can really embody a character and do good work, but each of us as human beings really lend ourselves towards certain types of people, right?
Yeah.
Like I could probably do all sorts of like character study and really get into it, but I'm never gonna play like a heavyset 50-year-old man like an actual heavyset 50-year-old man is,
Sure. Yeah.
And so, and that's a really extreme example, but
right now I can't lie. I'm thinking of, Danny DeVito is probably never going to play some handsome leading man. No offense if he listens to the verse.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Danny. Yeah.
Exactly.
But no, it's true. It's true. So, and it's, it's an industry, it's a business. And so knowing your type and your energy, how people read you when you walk into a room, and casting directors are instantly going to be thinking like, okay, these are the types of roles that we could send them in for, right?
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, look at this young actor, how do I help them blossom and flourish
no,
into the next Meryl? No, that's it's not really how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you too. So, I like what you said about when you saw Les Mis and you had this moment where you saw theater and it was combined with music and it had this impression on you. I feel like that's a moment where I will hear teenagers at times share something like, I didn't know, I'm kind of drawn to that. But then that's where, do you feel like you were fortunate to have a family that supported that. Do you run into people in the industry that didn't have that, or that that was a real struggle?
Certainly. Yeah. One of the great blessings that I have in my career is that I have parents that are supportive, family that's supportive and understanding. Yeah, I have lots of artist friends that, their parents or they're just their family, their immediate family are, in extreme cases, very unsupportive, right?
Yeah.
And practically disowning. And
Okay.
that's pretty rare, but
Yeah.
you do find that for a lot of people, it's not seen as a job. It's not seen as a viable career. And,
Well, and I know I'm jumping around a bit, but I loved when we were trading a couple of messages about, so when people do want to get into this as a career, what do you think the common mistakes are, or with, beliefs or thoughts, or what do you see?
yeah, I see. Well, first of all, artists the arts, like having a career in the arts gets a bad rap because we think it has a very bad track record.
Absolutely.
Because everybody knows somebody who moved to New York or LA or Chicago and was going to be the next whoever. And, a couple years later, didn't happen, move on with their life, right?
Yeah.
And we all categorize that as, okay, well, they failed because there's so many people who want to be actors and nobody can do it except for the 100 A-list movie stars. But in reality, a lot of people are drawn to the art. People are drawn to the arts for different reasons. For some of them, it really helps them to express themselves, come out of their shell. They have some type of cathartic experience. They're emotionally attached to it. Some people really love the attention. They love that feeds them, not necessarily in a negative way. It just they love getting to interact with an audience. But for a lot of artists, what happens is they have this dream, and then they start to get into the reality of what it is to run a business, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're running a personal business and you are your brand.
Wow.
And they say, oh, I love this, but not in that way. I don't want to make this my job. I still want to do this on the side, or I want to find other, I want to, make music with my friends on the weekends, but I don't want to go through the hustle.
Yeah.
And the job, the effort that it takes to building a job, building a career. I tell people that like working as an actor is like working sales commission, because when you get paid great, but you don't know when the next commission is going to come in. And so you have to, but your network and your relationships, your rates, all of those things increase over time as you're consistent with it. But a lot of people don't see it that way. They see it as like, well, you just got to get that big break. And if you don't get the big break, then what are you going to do? Right.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the other part of the reason the arts get a bad rap is because a lot of artists are terrible business people.
Yeah.
And so, and they don't, and they're, they get scammed, they get suckered, and all these different things. But what I tell people is, which ideally you're searching for this no matter what you want your career to be, I think. But what I tell people is you just have to be so honest with yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Through the whole process and open to your journey changing. Because, and I've learned that very painfully over and over. I'll probably keep learning it painfully over and over. But like going back to college, I left with this forced image of who I thought I was supposed to be as an actor and how I thought I was supposed to be successful. And I spent a good few years trying to make that work. And guess what happened? I was unproductive, or I was depressed, or I was not making headway, or I was awkward in relationships. It wasn't resonating for me. And I'm like, my personality is very, I don't know if you do the Myers-Briggs personality stuff, but I am an INFJ, like to a T. Like if what I do, if I'm not connected to it, I can't do it. It's like so hard
you can't
to make myself do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard for me to do that. which, you know, can be a weakness too sometimes. But so it took me a long time to even just be open to the fact that maybe there was a different path for me as an artist.
Okay.
And
well, can I ask you, what was that? Was that, you know, initial thought was the A-list movie star? I mean, was that
the initial thought was like stage, like Broadway,
okay.
musical theater, right? And that was like, that's where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to do. And I would get attention for certain things, but then it, you know, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. That's just how the game goes. But I would take it quite personally. And it actually took me, what finally got me to let go of it was deciding to have kids.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was very terrified that having children was going to end anything that I could ever do for myself again.
Yeah.
I was raised by an incredible mother who sacrificed a lot for us, and I saw some of the toll that took on her, and I was just like, I don't think I can handle that, you know.
Okay.
And just some of the cultures that I grew up in, that I was raised with, there wasn't much room for motherhood and anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it was kind of like, if I do anything else, I'm going to be a bad mom.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I would say there's some guilt there, kind of inherent guilt.
So much guilt. Oh yes. I hadn't even had kids yet, and I was like, I'm a terrible mom because I want something besides changing diapers, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to really work through the fear that I would be unsatisfied or unfulfilled, because the last thing I wanted was to resent any children that I had. You know, I was like, I did not want to put that on them.
I would have been a star if it wasn't for you, kid. I mean, you don't want to have those moments.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so I did a lot of just figuring it out. That, again, being honest with yourself, that just painful, emotional digging and questioning, and Jeff was a huge support through that, my husband, Jeff. And so finally getting to that point of being willing to accept whatever would come.
Okay.
And also just feeling like, if I have kids, am I going to have the opportunities or time to be able to keep being an actor? Is that even a musician? Is that even a possibility? You know, because you don't see a ton of people doing that. And a lot of the big Hollywood examples we get end up splitting up, or, you know, it's, you know, the things that they do to their children or teach their children, and you're just going, oh, they don't seem happy, you know. And but amazingly, after I had our first child, my daughter, Wild, I became so much more efficient. My creative brain became more focused.
Okay.
Because my time was much more dictated and limited because of this little baby, an infant. And a few months after Wild was born was when we moved to Tennessee.
Okay.
Where I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do here? There just weren't the same opportunities as New York. But it really what it did is it just gave me an entire humble pie, not just a slice, the whole pie.
Okay.
And made me really be honest about what do I want to do as an artist? What do I want to say? Why does it even matter that I pursue acting or music? Why do I feel this? And I still felt that need and that desire after having my daughter. And I'd made this commitment to myself. If I still feel that way, I'm not gonna push that down.
Okay.
Because that's part of me, and it needs to be taken care of. Just
did it look different at that point? I mean, were you ready to be the next Rafi or anything? Or I mean, or was it just that you were happy to be still there, or you know?
Initially it was just okay, it's still there.
Okay.
But all of the thrifting things, all of that actually started from that, because I was okay, I'm home with my kid all day. My husband's in school all day and then rehearsal all night. And I actually started this little Instagram challenge that I called 100 Days of Thrifting,
Okay.
where I just posted different thrifting tip for 100 days. And I started that, even though I had a show coming up that I was going to be in here in Knoxville, and I had some different things coming, but I just knew I needed to do something creative every day, or I was going to freak out.
Okay. I like it. And let's real quick, thrifting. I mean, and I can't wait to get to this and your YouTube channel. And I mean, that is like so much fun. It's crazy, but there are going to be people that are going to maybe not necessarily know what thrifting is.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So thrifting is, buying used goods secondhand. So they range, thrift shops or charity shops, as they're called in the UK, is they range from everything from, like, you've probably seen Goodwill, like a chain, like Goodwill Industries, or Salvation Army does them, or a lot of churches or nonprofits do them to raise money or to get goods for people who are in need. And basically people donate all of their used goods, used clothing, furniture, kitchen kitchen, whatever, house goods, home goods, bedding, forks, knives, like whatever, lamps, anything and everything, baby toys. And every thrifter has their limit of what they will and won't thrift for.
I'm curious, what is yours? What can you not thrift for?
I kind of draw the line at anything I can't wash, unless like furniture is a different thing. If it's a couch, I'm gonna really inspect it before I buy it. But like I don't do pillows. If I can't wash the blanket, I don't get it. Just because I've never had any problems, and I don't know anyone that has. But you never know.
I can tell you two random thoughts. When I was in early career as a therapist, I worked next door to a Deseret Industries thrift store.
Oh, yeah.
And when I would have a cancellation of an appointment, I would walk over there and I would buy books that made me look really smart. So psychology books, there were plenty of those. And then I was always on the quest for a cool tie. And so that just became just my habit. And then, and really quickly as well, I used to write for about a decade. I wrote a humor column in a newspaper, and when we were having kids, it was the start of the diaper genie. I don't know if those are even still around.
Yes.
Okay,
I thrifted one of them, actually.
Okay, well then I apologize that so that I wrote an article about going into a secondhand baby store, and of course I had to make the hack bit about not secondhand babies, but then I said, hey, who's gonna buy my diaper genie? So Aurora, maybe you bought my diaper genie. It sounds like.
Maybe I did, yeah. If it made its way to Knoxville, I bought it, yeah.
Yeah, we did keep it clean, but I mean, I thought that was kind of a funny thing that was my first experience of thrifting, but it was kind of exciting with all the baby clothes, and I think we got a swing there and one of the jogging strollers, and it's almost kind of addicting, right?
Oh yes, we call it like the thrill of the hunt, because you never know what you'll find. People often say like, oh, I want to go thrifting with you. And I'm like, well, are you sure? Because I have to check everything. It will take me 2 hours to get to the store.
Okay.
I mean, I can thrift for a shorter amount of time, but if I had my druthers, I skimmed through the whole store, because you never know when you're going to, because it's just volunteers most of the time that are organizing it, and thrifting is becoming more popular, and so stores are catching on, so they're trying to make things a little more organized, a little bit nicer, which is fun. I love the places where it's just like racks and piles and you got to sift through.
What's the great white whale of thrifting? I mean, so I was in Oakland with my son for a basketball tournament a while ago, and the rumor was there were these somebody at the Salvation Army in Oakland, which is gigantic, that there had been these $300 pair of shoes that someone had got there. So my son and I walked several blocks over and looked through these kind of pretty, worn shoes for quite a while, and never found another $300 pair. But is there everyone is looking for this thing in thrifting?
It depends on the type of thrifter you are, and if you thrift, like a lot of people thrift to resell clothing, and or like on eBay, or there's a plethora of clothing resale apps these days. For me, I'm always on the lookout for vintage, like good quality vintage clothing. Yeah. Which gets harder and harder to find because it's a little more popular, but also there's the clothes, they're getting older and older, so they're less and less common. but it just depends. And that's one of the things that's frustrating and exciting about thrifting is you will never find the same thing twice. Except I did find at a Deseret Industries once, I thrifted this handmade kind of 70s dress. I was like, oh, this is really fun. I like this. And I went to the same thrift store a couple of months later and thrifted a different dress. They were both handmade. And then a good 6 months later, I was looking at the one and I thought, like it had kind of a patchwork fabric on it. That fabric looks familiar. And I pull out this other dress and it was the same fabric. Oh. So the same person had made both items and I found them at the same thrift store 2 or 3 months apart. So I don't know if they'd been donated at the same time or if the same person later was like, I don't want this one either. Yeah. But so you never know what you will find. Is there a
hierarchy? I mean, do people that go to thrift stores, will they waste their time at a yard sale or is that beneath them?
Oh, thrifters aren't really picky. They'll kind of go anywhere, think secondhand. Yard sales, estate sales, those are a different animal because you got to get up early. You got to do your research. You got to be ready to go. Whereas a thrift store, you can show up kind of whenever.
Okay. That's fair. Talk about your YouTube channel, and then I want to get back to, I've got other thoughts about, I want to get back to kind of the acting, but talk about the YouTube channel. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So my sister Adeline, we started a YouTube channel called Thrifted Sister. And I had been wanting to do some type of YouTube vlog channel. I'd been approached last year by a production company that creates and pitches content to like HGTV network type networks. And they had said, like, there's nothing, we're trying to pitch a thrifting show because there isn't anything. Like, there's people vlogging about thrifting, but there's not a show dedicated to thrifting. And I toyed with the idea of doing a vlog about thrifting, but I was like, I don't really, it wasn't, again, it has to feel right to me. Right. Or I have a really hard time committing. Yeah. And it just wasn't quite sitting right. But I knew I needed to do something with it, but I didn't know what. So it was nagging at me and bugging me. And then when in December, this last December, I was home with my family and my whole family loves to thrift, much to my dad's chagrin. He likes thrifting, but he doesn't like, but all 5 of my siblings, my 4 younger siblings and I, that is what we'll do. We love to, if we go on vacation, it's like, where's the thrift store? We want to thrift wherever we're going. And my dad's like, really? We're in this place and you want to go to a thrift store? We're like, yeah, because who knows what people wear here. But we're dorky that way. And so it just hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, Adeline, we should do something together. Because part of my hesitation had just been, I'm the queen of taking on too many projects. And it's like, I'd wanted to do this thing, but I also didn't feel like I totally had the time to take it on by myself. And I was trying to think of a way, like, how can we get people engaged with it as well? And I was like, oh my gosh, Adeline, we should do this together. And
she's hilarious too. I mean, she's an actress.
Yeah, I know, isn't she?
Yeah. She's good. Yeah.
And it's fun because she's almost 11 years younger than me. She's a senior in high school. And so we're sisters, obviously, but we're in very different places in our life. And even like our sense of style is like almost opposite. It's very different. And yeah, so we got this idea and we planned it, put it together. And what we do is, because she lives out by you in California, and I'm in Tennessee, obviously. And so we both take on a thrifting challenge. Like our very first challenge was who can match the most patterns successfully. And then the viewers in the comments below vote who they think wins. Yeah. And that's what we do. And then we also do, we do thrift haul videos. So we show different things that we thrifted. We do, one thing I'm really excited about is we're going to be coming up in the next few months, we're starting to do thrifting spotlights on different thrift stores and organizations that support them. And also one of the big reasons that I love thrifting is because of the sustainable factor involved. Okay. Like fast fashion is a really big thing for not just for our economy, but for our environment and for like social impact and how people and workers are treated around the world. And so,
I hadn't even thought about
thrifting,
that kind of angle. You know,
yeah,
okay. And you talked about in your
yeah,
notes too, man, just kind of the concept of thrifting in general is being a little more of your authentic self and you can express yourself a little bit more. Yeah.
yeah, which
Yeah.
that's when people ask me why I love to thrift, there's a lot of reasons why I'm passionate about it. But the reason I started and why I still do it today is because I feel like I can express myself through how I dress. And that's not important. Everybody finds different ways to express themselves. For me, getting dressed is a creative experience.
Yeah.
My poor Jeff. It always takes me forever. And he's like, why don't you wear an outfit you've already worn? So I'm like, oh, because I have to make something new. And I can't just wear the same thing. And it's not out of a prideful, like, oh, I can't be seen wearing the same thing. It's that I really enjoy.
You enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so thrifting is such a unique experience. And I know I'm not finding something that everyone else is wearing. I know I'm finding something that, sure, it might be that item might be an out of date style. But if I pair it with these pants or with this sweater or with,
I'm not going to lie. Okay. Here's my truth is that I own about 15 pair of khaki pants and 15 blue shirts. And today I'm wearing a blue shirt and a light blue shirt and blue pants. So I've mixed it up a little bit because I knew I was coming on with you. Right.
Yes,
So,
good.
but there's a part of me that when I watch your videos, I mean, I kind of feel like, okay, that would be kind of fun. And I have started wearing crazy socks, not going to lie. And even then there's a part of me that's like, what if I'm in front of a couple and I cross my leg and then all of a sudden they're like, I can't take this guy seriously because he has, polka dotted socks. And I think, okay, all I'm talking about all day is people being authentic. And so I do feel like the more I watch your videos, the more I think, all right, that's kind of a pretty cool way to do that. And I have thought of becoming the thrifted therapist.
Oh, yes.
So when you come out here this summer, then, okay, let's go on a journey. You pick out my wardrobe and then I will wear it on one of my 8 client days and I will see if I continue to have a practice after that.
Yes, perfect.
Right?
Challenge accepted.
Okay, I think that'd be kind of fun. But no, I really do like that, and I hope that people will go watch the videos. They're incredibly well produced, and I've always been kind of curious. Is that a hard thing? Do you do the editing and?
We take turns editing just to balance the weight. So it's honestly, I have yet to. The only thing that makes me stressed about doing this right now is when we're up on a time crunch, if we're behind on our editing. But I've loved every process of it. I wrote the theme song for it.
Oh, that's so cool.
And recorded it at home,
Yeah.
That was like my foray into doing my own home recording. And like my brother Emmett, who's a musician by trade, like he did all the mixing and everything. It's,
hey, will you plug his band really quick too? Because I've been kind of following them, and they're really good.
Yes, yeah. So my brother Emmett, his band is the Fangs, Fangs, like vampire fangs. And yeah, they're fantastic. They're getting ready to release another EP here soon, and they've got some great music. They've been doing some touring, just some small touring around in the West Coast area, and yeah, they're fantastic. Some alternative rock.
Hey, are you okay if we do a little bit of rapid fire? Some kind of just fun facts or questions I have for you and that sort of thing. Okay, so first of all, go find Thrifted Sister on YouTube, your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Okay, which would be amazing. And I think and then we have a nice challenge ahead in the summer. I'm super excited about that when you come out here. That's gonna be fun. Tell me the story about when you and Jeff met. So you're both actors. I'm kind of curious. Were you acting together? Was it love at first sight? Was it a passionate? You kissed each other on stage, or what? Is there a cool story?
Yeah. Yes, actually. So we met my very first semester of college doing a play in Salt Lake, and Jeff is 6 years older than me, and he asked his friend. He said, "Who's that?" He said, "Oh, that's Aurora. She's 17," because I had a late birthday. That's why I wasn't even 18 yet. And he said, "Okay, we'll talk to you later." And Jeff was always one of those people that I like to think I was very mature for my age.
Sure.
So like, of course, I could be friends with, the 23 to 30-year-olds. It was my, at 17. But I was always very drawn to him. I was like, who is Jeff Takamore? And he everybody always loves Jeff. He's a very loving, enthusiastic person. He makes them feel great about themselves. And he brings out the best in people. But so there was always this kind of aura when people would talk about him. And I remember I told a friend, because we were in a show together my first semester and we were in another show together my second semester. We didn't have much interaction in scenes, but you're in the rehearsal process and you spend time together. And I told one of my friends, I said, so I kind of like Jeff Takamore. And she goes, everybody likes Jeff Takamore. And so I was like, okay, I'm never telling anyone else that again.
Right. Yeah.
And so then we would see each other on and off over the years. And then we ended up doing a show together over the summer, near the end of when I was in college. And
what was the show?
It was the Nauvoo pageant.
Oh, okay.
For the LDS church. It was a big summer production. It's pretty incredible. You go and you work with families who are the ensemble for this big outdoor production, but you have a new set of families that come every week, and you're outside the Nauvoo humidity, the Illinois humidity from 8 a.m. until basically 11 or 12 is when you get home every night. And so it's very physically exhausting and emotionally you're just giving a lot. You kind of see all the sides of a person.
Sure. Yeah.
You get to know someone really well. And it was just funny because this whole summer we were both dating other people long distance at the time. And the whole summer I was just mad because I couldn't focus when Jeff was in the room, because it was just, I was a cool cucumber around everybody except Jeff. I got like, I was, that stereotypical like, oh, hey, how's your day? Do you like, okay, bye. Just, both of us were just ridiculous. We couldn't carry a conversation hardly. And we got to be very good friends, but, and then we eventually, like, he asked me on a date, but I didn't really know it was a date after that. And I was really scared of opening up to him because he was the one person I knew that as soon as I opened myself up to him, like I'd just be in love with him. And so I always kind of kept it at bay a little bit. But then I always tell people we met my first semester and we started dating my last semester.
Oh, nice. Okay. There was a part of me that so desperately wanted him to come running in the room here and he's yelling at you or something. Oh, sorry. Right. When you're singing praises or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Nice. Right. Okay. So, and that is, and I'm kind of curious, have you guys been in a lot of the same productions since?
We've gotten to do quite a bit together. We've gone back to Nauvoo several different summers. We've gotten to do some film work together. We got to do some shows out here in Tennessee. We have only gotten to do, we haven't gotten to do as much scene work together. Often when we're cast in things, we both get to be in something. When I graduated from college, I was cast as Eliza Doolittle in The Tour of My Fair Lady. Okay. And he was cast as well in the ensemble. So we were in it together, but we didn't have we had like 2 lines together. Yeah. We always joked that Eliza ran off with the bartender at the end after the curtain call because he was the bartender that threw Eliza's father out, Okay. So, but yeah, so we've gotten to work together quite a bit, and I think we've gotten to do some film work together as well, and we obviously love theater, but film is what kind of keeps like drawing us back. It keeps pulling us back more and more. And sorry, I'm kind of just like rambling at this point.
Oh no, it's good. Now, was Eliza Doolittle My Fair Lady, is that when you had an opportunity to go to China and perform?
Yes. So that was the gift they just kept on giving, because we did the US run of that tour for 6 months. Wow. And then years later, the production of it was bought and remounted in Singapore for a month. And then another 2 years later, they remounted it in China for a tour. So yeah, so I've gotten to do that show. That was the first time it had ever been performed in China, actually.
How was that?
So that was incredible. It was great. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Is there any sense, well, first of all, in China, I mean, I am kind of curious, what was the downtime like? I mean, did you get to explore a lot of China or?
Thankfully the downtime was pretty good because we had pretty long sit downs. We spent a good amount of time in Shanghai, which was really cool. It was fun to get there. Actually, my brother Truman, who you know,
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, I love Truman. He discovered an entire thrifting market.
Wow.
Yeah, it was in Shanghai, and it was really fun. But yeah, we got to spend quite a bit of time getting to know the areas that we were in, and then when we were done, we went over to Hong Kong for 4 or 5 days and got to explore that city as well. And yeah, I was honestly very surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting to enjoy China as much, mostly because I didn't know that much about what it would be like to be a tourist there, to visit. But it was incredible. It's like the countryside is so diverse there, and yeah, it was just a really fascinating place. I would definitely go back. And I realized it's like, why don't I have in my mind like Pinterest images of like, go to China?
Oh, right.
And being there, it's because they don't care. They don't care if we come. They advertise within their country, but they have so many people to advertise to, and they're not really interested in American interest in their tourism. So there's not a lot of trying to get people to come in to tour and visit China.
Yeah.
But it's really a great place to visit. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay, so I remember at one point I heard a rumor, and then I had to check, and it was true on Wikipedia. So obviously it was very, very based in fact. But then when I dug up your resume as well, it is here. So super quick, founding member of Imagine Dragons, right?
Yes, yeah.
I had always heard that was a rumor, and then it was like, so what was that like that time?
Yeah, so that happened my sophomore year of college. My cousin, who's a dear friend of mine, we grew up together, and we like wrote music together, played music together, and we were really dorky and decided to wear matching outfits to our first day of second year of college. So it's like first day of the semester, and we had like matching blue sweaters with our matching. We planned it all out, and we were sitting at one of those big communal tables at like the student rec center, basically eating lunch. And this guy sat down kind of on the other side of this big round table with his headphones, and he's kind of sitting there checking us out a little bit. And then a little while later, he starts talking to us, and he just goes, "Hey, do you guys write music? You look like you write music."
Was it the sweaters, or what was it that kind of...
I think that maybe gave it away. We were like, "Yeah, actually, yeah, we write music." And he literally said, "Well, so yeah, like I write music too, and my brother manages the Killers, and I want to make a famous rock band."
Wow. Okay.
And we were like, "Okay, cool,"
That easy. Sure.
And that was Dan Reynolds. That was the introduction to Dan Reynolds. And so it was this really fun whirlwind of a year where we got together. This, he really was the driving force for the band for sure. He is one of the most dedicated, driven artists I've ever known. I have great admiration for his, he's just so tenacious. I love that about him. And so he put together a band, and we won some Battle of the Bands and kind of got some traction, and yeah, we had a good time. We went down to Vegas and recorded an EP in the Killers studio, and
wow.
Yeah, had a lot of fun. And then eventually we decided to part ways for some, it sounds so cliche, but really for artistic reasons and just life choice reasons. Dan really wanted to move back to Vegas, where he's from.
And you weren't a fan of dragons, right? It kind of all boiled down to that. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I just was like, I couldn't do the dragon
thing. I understand. Yeah. But you had a fun time doing that.
Yes, so much fun. Yeah. Okay. And it's obviously, I'm so happy for them and where they've gone with that. It's fantastic.
Yeah. This one is one that I get. I don't know. I hear this one. I get asked this a lot. I have clients who talk about this. Have you, and I'm sure you've heard this isn't a surprise, but a lot of people feel like, okay, I'll go and I'll try to be an actor, but I'm going to have this real solid plan B. But then there are other people who say, if I have a plan B, then I won't devote or give my all to acting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to figure out, because you do have to support yourself.
Mm.
obviously. And unless you get a really lucky job kind of right off the bat that pays you well, it takes time to build all that stuff up. What a lot of people don't realize, or even if they hear it, it's hard to figure it out because it's something that every person has to figure out for themselves. But your industry is your relationships.
Okay.
Like, because time is so much, your time is your money in the arts. And so if somebody has worked with you and they know that you are good for your word and you're going to show up and you're going to be dedicated and do good work, like that goes so far. They'll vouch for you. They'll hire you again. We actually last summer went out to San Diego for 2 months. I did a musical down at a regional theater in San Diego with the director from My Fair Lady, because when we were in rehearsals for China, like the third time around, I just casually had asked him, "Oh, what are you working on next?" He's like, "Oh, I'm working on, I'm doing the musical, The Spitfire Grill, down in San Diego." I was like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite shows. I would love to be in it." And he goes, "Oh, okay, well, check in with me, in the fall." This was in January. He's like, "Check in with me in the fall and see, what can work." And then, so I did. I was 3-4 months pregnant with my second.
Okay.
And also, it's like, who knows? But I emailed them and said, "Hey, if they're bringing in out of town talent, let me know." And timing wise, it worked out really well. My baby was like 7 weeks old when we started rehearsals.
Wow.
And but that theater, they were able to, every theater is different with what they can provide, but they were able to provide housing for us. And so our whole family got to go down and live in San Diego. It was when Jeff was off for school.
Wow.
So and that was all because I'd worked with this guy before and he knew me. And so he's like, "Yeah, great." So, but that takes time to build up those relationships. And what happens too is it takes time for you to be right for a part and for someone to trust you with the next level up. And so, so you do have, sorry, I'm getting to your question, I promise.
No, you did great.
But so it does take, you do have to be able to find a way to like provide for yourself, for sure. But there's a difference between, okay, this is how I make ends meet while I'm building up to making ends meet with my real career, with what I want to be doing, versus plan B. Plan B is something that's going to take a lot of time and dedication.
Okay.
You want to make money at it, right?
Yeah. I heard an interview with a comedian once, and he talked about working in an advertising agency. And so then that ended up, kind of taking over all of his time, versus you hear the stereotypical waiter or waitress. So there's a little more flexibility, and they're just trying to, okay. Yeah. Did you have any of those jobs?
I did some catering while I was in New York. Yes. Nice. Okay. My main side job when I've needed it, has been like music. I teach private music lessons.
Oh, okay. That's perfect.
Yeah, which is great because I can set my own schedule. I have flexibility if I need to cancel or reschedule things if an audition or something comes up, or with my kids. It's very flexible. So everybody finds their way. I would say today it's even easier to find flexible ways to make income with the internet because there's just so many more opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Than just like, needing to get a good waiting job.
Okay. Hey, so you go ahead.
Oh yeah. And that goes back to what I was talking about before with being true to like, just being honest with yourself. Like if you've got a plan B that you're okay with and you like doing, you're probably going to do that instead of pursue, because it's hard work, and it takes a lot of faith to be an artist,
Yeah.
And so whenever people are like, "Oh, well, my plan B is," I'm like, "Okay, well then do plan B. Stop. Yeah. Don't try and be an artist professionally anymore because you're not going to.
Yeah.
The plan is going to take more and more time that you need that time to pursue being an artist. And so,
and I have worked with people who, and I like where you kind of keep going back to being honest with yourself, being authentic. I've had people that they can't manage. I mean, that's too much stress or anxiety. So then they do, okay, I can have this career, and now they're doing community theater or, and I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, a lot of the actors, artists, musicians that I know who turn towards a plan B, they're happy. They wanted that. They're
Yeah.
fine working in real estate or, you know, being a mom full time or whatever it is that they do, or being an educator, a teacher, or going back to school. They're happy with those choices. And there are a lot of great ways and outlets to still pursue that creativity. It's just a totally different animal if you want to do it as your job.
Yeah. Aurora, can I feel like this is a safe place, you and I talking, right? I have so many like funny stereotypical things that go through my head from acting. So I don't know if you noticed, when I just took my glasses off to scratch my nose, all of a sudden I looked completely different to you, right? I always love in the movies when, you know, the girl has her hair back in a ponytail and glasses, and the guy doesn't even recognize her, and all of a sudden glasses are off, and he's like, whoa, you're beautiful, right? Yeah. So you were probably having that moment when I took the glasses off, I imagine.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, Tony is so beautiful.
Okay. All right. A little too far, right? Okay. So you have children, beautiful children. And so I am curious, what are your thoughts on, you know, are you like, you know, you kids are going to work, you know, I'm joking with that part, but I mean, you know, what is a child acting, that sort of thing? Are you?
Yeah,
that was the worst question I've ever formed, though. But you know what I'm saying, right?
I got
work, child, act thing.
Yeah, labor laws. What?
Yeah.
No. If our kids are interested in it, I'll definitely, you know, let them try that and play with it. The thing is, though, until you get older, it's like a lot of things. There's not a whole lot you can do to really develop yourself as an actor.
Yeah.
Until you get older. And because I have spent quite a bit of time, I've taught at a children's theater here while we've been in Knoxville.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time educating youth in theater. And I cringe when parents are like, well, my kids just loves to talk and is so dramatic, so they want to be they must be a performer. I'm like, no, that's not right. What acting is. Acting is not about look at me. Like, acting is, the best actors are really good listeners, right? Okay. And so we do and then when you get into the business of it, you have people who don't know how to work with kids, right? Who are not behaving the way they should when they're in front of children. And this isn't always the case. There are plenty of people who are lovely with children and try to be respectful. But you can't, you know, when you're working with a crew of, you know, 10 or 20, 30 people, you can't control everything that they're going to be exposed to or how they're going to be treated. Or what I'm most concerned with is what behavior they'll be encouraged to exude. Yeah. And when it's a product oriented situation, that's what you're going to be trying to get from the kid is like, okay, honey, I need you to say it like this, or, you know, that's a very stereotypical example, but, and just, you know, children are meant to play and imagine and which is one of the reasons we love when we can watch them right on screen and in theater. So if they're interested, I definitely won't hold them back from it, but I'll definitely be cautious of what they're exposed to in that.
All right. So, so I was actually born in Tennessee, over in East Tennessee. So
I'm in East Tennessee. Where in East Tennessee?
A little further, Johnson City, that area.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah. So that was where I was born. So, I have to, we had moved away and I took my wife back there the first time ever, and we were watching the TV news, and I think my wife just laughed about, you know, hearing someone deliver the news with an accent, you know, doing that thing. Right. And it was just so funny. What has that been like? You know, you're in children's theater and you're classically trained, and then they're all, hi, you know, are you getting some of that?
Gosh, yes. It's one thing that's funny about the South is like, you never know when or someone's going to have an accent.
Okay.
Because two kids who grew up down the street from each other, one will be like, oh, hi, Miss Aurora, how are you today? And the other one will be like, hi, Miss Aurora. Like, there's no, I don't know what, but oh yeah, it just would warm my heart when they're up there, you know, doing their, now listen, y'all. And you're like, oh.
Like let's not always play these guys as Southern, right? You know, I mean, a little more range. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Just the drawl here. I love it.
Yeah. And I was, part of my goal was I wanted to hear yours. And so I appreciate you kind of.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about emotional toll of acting. And I keep thinking about, it's only stories I've heard. I'm horrible. In my last podcast episode, I tried to do a narrative, personified guilt and shame, and it was horrible, and that was just the vocal acting. But I just hear stories about, going in for an audition, and everybody, if they're a particular type, and everybody looks the same, and is that hard? Is it hard to stay positive, or I don't know?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. It's exhausting in many ways. And one of the things that is exhausting about it is the people that are successful in the arts, from what I've observed, tend to fall into two categories. One is that they're very naturally talented and probably really attractive, and they've gotten some attention because of that, and they know how to talk to people, and all of that. And then there's people that are also very talented and probably attractive. It tends to be a pretty we're into the
common
physical
theme. Sure.
industry.
Yeah.
But and even if they're not, they're very talented, but they've found a way to be very authentic and true in their work. And there's a great vulnerability to that people are drawn to, right? We tend to be drawn to those two things as human beings, like kind of exhibitionists and this authenticity.
Yeah.
And so I try to be the latter. I'd rather be an authentic person and have people be interested in what I have, Aurora, as an artist to offer. And that can get really exhausting, because you start to feel like, okay, well, I've just put myself out there, and I wasn't wanted. When a lot of the time it's just you didn't say the line how the producer had it in his head and a different person did. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you're maybe a more vulnerable, authentic, skilled, talented, hardworking, even a better person than this other person. Like, if you didn't say it the way they did, sorry, Okay. And that can be discouraging. But again, it's for myself, what's helped me when I get discouraged is going back to relationships. If I then focus on being the type of artist that I want to work with, Jeff and I have our dream list of creators that we would love to collaborate with someday. And I try to tell myself, okay, well, what would make them want to work with me? And obviously I can't know that. I can't get in their heads.
Yeah.
But I can look at their work and the type of work they do, and I can read their interviews. I can pay attention to how they've been honest to their truth.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's Jeff and I are constantly striving to be that type of artist, is somebody who is creating what is true to them, but in a way that is still relatable to people. That's another stereotypical actor artist thing, is but it's so, I don't care if nobody relates to it. This is what is true for me. This is what's real. It's well, but that's still selfish, okay. Or not selfish. That's still very inwardly focused, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't always a bad thing. There's plenty of really great artists that create great art from their inward focus, that we can still relate to. But yeah, sorry.
No, gosh, it's 11:10 in Tennessee.
Oh,
and when I started, I was like, "Hey, I'll make sure and keep it under an hour." And now I'm over an hour 5, and I feel like we're just getting warmed up. But no, I will. We now have this wonderful challenge in the summer. You're going to be in here in California. Can't wait. Where can people find you?
Yes, they can find us obviously on YouTube at Thrifted Sister. I'm most active on Instagram. Just Aurora Florence. Straight Aurora Florence, no underscores, no dots, none of that. Just, I was lucky, got my name.
Got to get it early. Yeah. Can I share 2 stories that I wrote down just to make sure? I forgot they're about your dad.
Oh, yes.
If he's still listening, right? I hope so. So I remember he and I were both volunteering up at a girls' camp one summer, and I kind of knew of him. And then it was during lunch, and all of a sudden he stands up on a table and then leads everyone in a rendition of Oklahoma at the top of his lungs. And I remember thinking, I want to party with that guy, right? And,
Yes.
and I don't know if it was that year or the next, and he knows where I'm going with this one. But the men up there that were helping volunteer, we had to do some sort of talent or whatever. And he and I we were on the same page. So I put some foil on my teeth. I grabbed a clock from the kitchen. I was Flava Flav, and I forget exactly who he was. But then he and I came out and brought the house down, as the kids say, doing some sort of rap or whatever. Have you ever seen that?
No. Is there footage of this?
You know, somebody shared it on Facebook one time. There is some footage out there somewhere. So I want to try to find that. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And he and I have always dreamt of a reunion. So,
Yes.
hey, it's not too late.
You guys can rap on our episode.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah. I'm sure we can find some clothing like that.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. We'll costume you.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we have done annual backpacking trips. Camping turned into backpacking since I was 6. We did daddy-daughter camp, and they morphed into everybody can come by the time I was in high school. But it was with my family and another good family friends, and every morning my dad and this other dad, they would stand on opposite ends of the camp, and they would like do call and response. Oh, what a beautiful morning. So you'd hear like in the distance, there's a bright golden haze on the meadow, and then like right by your tent, there's a bright golden haze, and it's like, it's time to get up, because you get up at 6, crack of dawn when you're backpacking, and oh man. So,
no wonder you kind of grew up feeling okay, kind of
yes,
self out there like that, right?
Expressing myself through song.
All right, Aurora, this was wonderful. Wait, I really didn't even mean that. See what I just did right there?
Hey!
I really didn't mean that. That was like, this has been amazing and fantastic, and I really appreciate you coming on. And I can't wait for the summer, and we got our challenge ahead. And please, I will put in the show notes the link to your YouTube channel, and I think people are going to really enjoy that. And you're like, you can still go buy your EP too on iTunes.
Oh yeah, that's all on iTunes, Spotify, all that.
I don't even know if people buy music anymore, but they can go find it, right?
Right. Yes, you can find it.
Stream things like the kids do. But no, thanks for staying up so late, and thank Jeff. That was really kind. It's kind of funny now. I almost kind of feel like I don't want to be like, dance Aurora, but it's like, I'm about to say. And now, the talented Aurora Florence takes us away with this wonderful. And there's part of me that's like, Aurora, can you say that? But I didn't kind of, is that a little awkward? Yeah.
No, I mean, how would I say it?
I don't know. Yeah. I will now take you away with my song. I don't know.
I will now take you out with, hey guys, go listen to It's Wonderful now as we send you on your way.
That's right. All right, Aurora, thank you so much. And we will I will see you next time on the virtual couch.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.